All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're digging into a really important book called What Customers Want by Anthony Ulwick. And it gets right to the heart of one of the biggest, most expensive problems in business. Why is innovation so unpredictable? We're all told to be obsessed with our customers, right? But somehow, most new products still end up failing. We're going to find out why.
I mean, think about that number for a second. Over 80%. Companies are pouring billions upon billions of dollars into R&D, into marketing, all for a result that's, well, it's often worse than a coin flip. It's this massive, high-stakes gamble, and most of the time, the house wins.
And here's the really wild part. It's not because they aren't trying. Companies are running focus groups, they're sending out surveys, they're analyzing every piece of feedback they can get their hands on. They are completely dedicated to hearing the voice of the customer. So, if we're listening so hard, how are we still getting it so wrong?
This is exactly what Ulwick calls the innovation gamble. It's a game with terrible odds that most companies just keep playing, hoping for a different result. But what if the problem isn't bad luck? What if the game itself is rigged? Because the rules we're playing by are just fundamentally broken. Okay, so let's get to the real core of the issue here. The problem isn't a lack of effort, it's that we're collecting the wrong kind of information. We think we're listening, but the truth is, we're not even speaking the same language as our customers.
Now, this might be a tough pill to swallow, because listen to your customer is basically the first commandment of modern business. But what if the very way we translate what they're saying into what we should build is where the whole process just completely falls apart?
And here's what that flawed data looks like. First, you get solutions. This is when a customer says, you should add a bigger button. The problem is, they're not a designer, and you're letting them design your product. Then you get specifications, which just ties your hands. Then there are vague needs. You've heard them a million times. Make it easier to use or make it more reliable. What does that actually mean? And finally, you get these fuzzy benefits that could be interpreted in 100 different ways. You can't build a successful product on a foundation that's shaky.
And this brings us right to the turning point. As Ulwick says, we have to stop collecting all this messy, flawed data. We need to make a huge shift. Instead of focusing on solutions and needs, we have to start understanding something else entirely: jobs, outcomes, and constraints.
And there they are. This is it. This is the new language of innovation. Forget features, forget benefits for a second. The conversation needs to be about these three things: jobs, outcomes, and constraints.
So let's be really clear here. This isn't just about tweaking your survey questions. This is a fundamental change in your entire mindset. It's about learning to have a completely different kind of conversation with your customers, one that uncovers what truly drives them.
Okay, first up, the job to be done. This is the what. It's the core task or goal the customer's trying to get done, and it has nothing to do with your product. You know the old saying, people don't want a quarter-inch drill, they want a quarter-inch hole. The job is the goal, not the tool they use to do it.
So if the job is the what, then the desired outcome is the how. These are the specific, measurable metrics that customers use in their heads, whether they realize it or not, to decide if the job was done well. They sound like things like minimize the time it takes to do X or reduce the chance of making a mistake when I do Y.
And last but not least, we have constraints. These are the why nots. What's stopping the customer? It could be anything. Not enough time, not enough money, not enough skill, not enough access. And let me tell you, these constraints are often where the biggest, most exciting innovation opportunities are hiding.
I absolutely love this analogy because it just makes everything click. Asking your customers for feature ideas is like a world-class chef asking a diner for a recipe. The diner isn't a chef, it's not their expertise. But asking for outcomes? Now that's like the chef asking the diner to describe their perfect meal. You know, the perfect temperature, the right amount of spice, how quickly it was served. Now that is incredibly valuable information a chef can actually work with. Let's make this super concrete. Say the job is prepare a meal. A key desired outcome for that job is to minimize the time it takes to chop vegetables. But a really common constraint is that their knives are always dull, or they just flat out don't have enough time. Now, a company that understands this doesn't just go build a slightly better knife. No, they might invent a super high-speed food processor, or maybe they pivot and create a meal delivery service. See, the solution becomes so much clearer once you understand the problem in this new language.
So great, you have this powerful new language, but how do you actually use it to find the best ideas? Well, that's where we get to the opportunity algorithm.
This is really where the magic happens, because by turning these jobs and outcomes into something you can measure, you can finally take all the guesswork and all the gut feelings out of the process.
You can literally turn innovation into a systematic, data-driven science.
And the process itself is beautifully simple. First, you figure out all the desired outcomes for a particular job. Then you survey customers and ask them to rate two things. One, how important is this outcome to you? And two, how satisfied are you with the solutions you have today to achieve it? The gap between those two numbers, that's where your next big idea is hiding.
The analysis basically creates a crystal clear map for you. When your customers tell you an outcome is super important, but their satisfaction with current products is really low, bam, that's your green light. That is a massive opportunity. On the other hand, if something's important but they're already happy, that market is saturated. You now know not to waste your time and money there. So what this all boils down to is a heat map of your market. The algorithm points with mathematical precision to the exact spots where customers are frustrated, where they're struggling, and where they're desperate for a better way. It lets you find and serve the people who are currently being ignored.
So let's bring this all home. Adopting this way of thinking isn't just some small process change. It's a fundamental shift, moving your company from a culture of guesswork to a predictable engine for growth.
And the benefits are just huge. You start discovering opportunities that your competitors literally can't see. You can segment your market based on their unmet needs, not on some vague demographic data. Your marketing messages become razor sharp because you're speaking directly to their actual struggles. You stop wasting development money on features nobody really wanted, and you create a reliable, predictable path to growth.
If you only take one single thing away from all of this, let it be this right here. The whole philosophy boils down to a pivot from being product-focused to being job-focused. Stop asking about your solution. Start obsessing over their problem, their job, and how they measure success.
And so I'll just leave you with this one question to think about for your own business, your own product, your own team. Try to look past what customers are asking for, and instead ask yourself this: what is the fundamental job that they have really hired my product to do? Finding the answer to that question is your first step toward truly predictable innovation. Thanks for joining me.